Good afternoon and welcome to Rubbing Minds. Happy 2026. Expect to hear this as we go into the first complete working week of this new year. I hope you enjoyed the festivity, the Christmas holiday and break, and you're ready for 2026. Now, today on the show, we will be discussing the factors that will shape 2026, from politics to governance to the road to the 2027 general elections, the creative economy, and of course, the big one, T for tax. My name is Isabella Adediji, and it's truly a pleasure to be back here on Rubbing Minds. Now, our first guest today is an economist, and he's joining us via Zoom. Stanley Honora, welcome to Rubbing Minds.
Good afternoon. I don't know if you can see me. Good afternoon.
Yes, I can see you. Happy 2026. Now, I can't wait for this conversation, and I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are eager to learn more about the big T tax because it's been like everyone has been preparing for 2026 of tax. In fact, if you go on
Yeah.
social media, you'll find some very funny memes and screenshots of transfer notes. I beg, this 2K is just to help my brother. Taxman, don't collect any tax, so it's a gift. Like, is that what we're going into? That we have to be this descriptive and even describing what our payments are for? Does that really make a difference in the grand scheme of things when it comes to tax?
Thanks for having me and Happy New Year to everyone. One of the things that we are seeing is a case of a newness. As a person, I like the idea that people are aware of the fact that there's money now coming from them. Nigerians have been paying tax for years, but this awareness has never been there. And that is a new thing. And I'm sure to me, I just feel like it's going to make a lot more, there's going to be a lot more accountability on the side of the government because of the awareness. But for most of the people that are scared, oh, is it that once I transfer 1,000 naira, they're going to take out this money? Or once I transfer 5,000 naira, money is leaving my account because they're going to tax me 20%. That is not the truth. So there is that confusion, and that's because there's been a lot of misinformation. For the average man on the streets, which makes up about 80% of who Nigerians are, most of them do not fall within for the business owners, do not fall within the tax bracket that's DP tax. Then for personal income, that has to do with your employer, and your employer, for most people that are employed within an organization, your employer already has been paying your tax. For some of them, they will even see an increment in their salaries. And some people will have the advantage. I'm sure your employer will tell you that, oh, you can go and do National Housing Fund or one of those allowable tax deductibles that will help you see your tax being reduced. So for most people, which I would say for a lot of like 80% of Nigerians, the fear that they have is just mostly, amplified by social media. If they were to go down to what it really is, a lot of them do not need to worry. But for the vast majority of business owners that fall within the taxable bracket that have not been paying tax over the past few years, this time a lot of them now have to worry about being compliant.
Hmm. I like how you break down the different brackets and the fact that the people who are employed don't need to worry so much because their employers are already doing the hard work of filing their taxes for them. But let's look at the informal sector. So the Okada rider, the market woman who's selling, the hairdresser, how do you think this government has done in terms of communicating what exactly tax compliance means to them? People that don't necessarily have social media or haven't done the extra work of going to find out how tax affects them.
So kudos to channels and to a lot of the media houses that have been doing, their own beats on the front. But there's the radio stations that I've seen some jingles around some radio stations. But I was telling a community that I spoke to, I felt like the government would need to come down to like the level of like market unions, trade unions, Okada unions, and all those unions that they have. You need to find a way to disseminate this information to them so that there is not that worry that most of them have. Because within that bracket, a lot of them do not, within that, those unions, a lot of them do not fall within the taxable brackets. Those are the ones that some of them have like a lot of the tax exemptions that this new law holds. But do they know? No. Is the fear there? Yes. So the government needs the National Orientation Agency, the people that are handling this tax, they need to find a way to communicate to these unions that will pass the information, the right information, down to the average man.
So still a lot of work that needs to be done. And thank you for acknowledging the work that we're doing here at Channels. Now let's look at the timing of this reform. Nigerians are saying they're still bearing the weight of the rising cost of living. They are dealing with inflation and just the fact that it's just more expensive to go about your daily business. Do you think that this tax reform came at the right time for Nigerians?
I don't know if there's any. I don't know if I would say it's the right time because on the side of the government, the the claim and the idea by the government is that they are trying to reduce the tax burden for the poorest of the poor, so you don't have to tax poverty. That's what the tax law is saying. Because if you look at the old tax law and what the new one has, so you see that for the low income earners, this tax law gives you the opportunity to have those breaks. But if you now come on the other side where a lot of people need to be compliant that have not been compliant, the government will say there is no better time for them to have come in because if you wait till 2027, there's an election, you wait till 2028, is a year after election, say you want to wait till 2029, what are the factors that you need to consider? That is on one side. But on the side of the Nigerians, on the side of the average man like you and I, we are grappling with a lot of realities. And the reality is that the government has its own role that they have failed to play over the years. And those roles that they have failed to play over the years in terms of infrastructure, healthcare, education, and all that, those are the basic amenities that the average man needs to survive, to feel like they are in a country that cares for them. The government has failed on that side. And that is where the social contract comes. You as an individual, you have your obligation to the government. You pay your taxes. You keep the law. You don't break the law. You are your brother's keeper in terms of watching your neighborhood and contributing your own quota wherever you work to the community. So those are the sides that's your own contract. But on the side of the social contract, where the government needs to protect, build roads, build quality infrastructure, and all that, they haven't quite done that over the years. In fact, they have failed to a large extent, where Nigerians then feel like, okay, why would I be giving you money if the ones that you have, you've not done so much with it? How do I then trust you that more funds coming to you will not be fizzled out through one embezzlement scheme or the other? So that is the disconnect, and that is what we're dealing with. So
Mm.
timing, I don't know, but looking forward to it. I hope the government can correct that going forward.
And how confident are you that this tax reform will deliver on its promises, that it's truly progressive and that the monies will be used for better infrastructure and to develop the economy? And I'm asking this question because there has been some confusion around what the tax reform is actually all about, because there's on a lot of news on social media and even in the traditional media about what was passed and what is actually being implemented, that disconnect. So if Nigerians are already saying, look, when we pay the tax, how do we know that you're actually going to use the money for what it was meant for? Then they're also asking questions around how do we know that what was passed is actually what is being implemented?
For the average man like you and I, there are certain information that we do not have, and that is why we rely on the people that we put there. And I'm hearing voices from, some of the representatives, the House and the Senate that are coming out to voice their own objections. That is why we have them there. That's because we are not privileged to what the records that was passed, and what we can see is what was gazetted. So it's why we have them there, and we need to hold them accountable to say If this is what you're saying that wasn't passed and there are discrepancies, you need to sort it out. But on the other side where you asked about sorry, the second question you asked, so that I don't miss
Yes,
that.
like how confident are you that when you pay your tax, when you're tax compliant, that this government will deliver on its promises of renewed hope, the infrastructure?
So this is a very, as a person, so I'm going to speak for me. And maybe there are people that are thinking like me. It's a 50-50 for me. 50-50 in the sense that I I'm going to use historical records. And that is all I'm going to base, because you use historical records, which is not a promise, because even in investing they tell you that historical records is not a promise of future returns. So you can't say that based on this happening exactly, this is how it happened last year, that this exactly will happen this year. But most times it gives you a guide. Now, why I say 50-50 is that there is a new law, and I don't know if Nigerians and the people in charge of the funds have changed. We hope that there is going to be more accountability. Like I said, hope. But on the flip side of it is that there is this awareness that we have never had since the history of Nigeria in terms of taxation. And I feel like we're having this conversation. 2 years ago, nobody was talking about taxation and how
Mm,
people pay their taxes and what they ought to pay or what they are not paying. So that has given us a lot of awareness. And with that
mm,
awareness comes with a level of accountability that I expect that we have never had before. And
yes,
let's not take that accountability for granted, because it can lead to unintended consequences if the
yes.
people feel aggravated. So that's why I say it's a 50-50 thing. If we use
50-50.
historical records, when I might not be confident, but if you look at the accountability side, where Nigerians are looking at and saying, see, I'm watching you, I'm looking at what is going to happen, I feel like there will be a lot more accountability.
Yeah, everybody does have a role to play, the people receiving the taxes and the ones paying the taxes. Now, I want to bring you to an earlier question I asked. In fact, the first question I asked when we started the show, which was the description. How important is that in transactions? Do you have to describe every single transfer you are making so that the taxman doesn't come and take your money? And for the people out there that are saying, look, where do I even start from in being compliant? What advice do you have for them?
Okay, so I want to clear this whole idea about description and where it's coming from. So the tax law says that for you to, for the tax deductible, what you can deduct from your tax are expenses that you incurred while for generating income in your business. So what a lot of people are trying to do is to make sure that they have narrations that state exactly why that expense was carried out and what it was used for, so that they can use it to prove to the taxman. That is the essence of those narrations. So, but essentially, if you are using a business account for your business, you might not have the need for a lot of that. Because if I'm buying a carton of juice from you and you sell juice, and I'm buying a carton of juice and it is 4,500, and I just sent 4,500, I do not need to narrate that it's a carton of juice. I'm buying a carton of juice from you, because over when you are auditing, when you're checking your accounts, you know that for every 4,500 that comes into your account, it's for a carton of juice. But there is now that confusion because a lot of people are using their personal accounts for business. So they are trying to see how they can narrate as much as possible so that they can differentiate that. But if you have structured your business effectively, you might not need that. You might not need to go about narrating every single thing. But most importantly, your bookkeeping, your receipts are the things that you need to show the taxman. So if you're looking at it from that regard, that every receipt that I have that I've used as an expense, that I need to keep it so that I can use it to prove that, this is an expense that was carried out, then that is a factor. I'll tell a lot of people, just snap it, have a folder, keep it. When you're doing your accounts, you can reconcile. So a lot of those narrations aren't really necessary. But if you have your bookkeeping that you've been doing properly.
So when it comes to this bookkeeping and paying attention to money coming in and out of the account, where should the focus be? Should it be on what we're expensing, or should it be on what we're receiving? Because we do know that, like, you receive foreign direct inflow from, overseas, you're getting taxed on that. So where should Nigerians be placing their focus on?
So let me correct that too. So that we can so there if you're receiving a remittance, if you are receiving money from family and friends from wherever coming into your account as a form of remittance, it's not income to you. You're not paid for. So it's like a gift, and that is not taxed. So now it's now on you, because a lot of what you're going to be doing is self-assessment. So that's where, for something like that, you can explain that it's a gift. Or somebody sends you remittances, upkeep. That's where one of those places where you see narration coming in. So it's for upkeep.
Very,
But
very important, because I
yes,
feel like a lot of the people here that are watching, some of them might be doing jobs, remote jobs, and they're getting remittances. So the onus is on them to say, okay, this is for work and this is a gift. Sadly, we're out of time, but thank you so much for your contributions and clearing the air on so many things. And it was a pleasure to have you, Stanley Honora.
thanks for having me. I appreciate it.